Hello and welcome everyone. This is the Fibre Co Spring Summer 25 webinar to celebrate the new designs for the season. My name is Daphne. I founded the Fibre Co over 20 years ago, and I'm here today with our design manager, Becky Baker.
Hi.
And the two of us are kind of linked at the hip when it comes to new designs for the Fibre Co. So we like to get together at the beginning of the season, do this twice a year, and go through our designs. And we've got a nice lineup for you. We were inspired by lightweight garments, of course, for the season in the Northern Hemisphere with the warmth that we have. But we kind of focused on tops quite a bit as well, or at least loose fitting garments for comfort. We're going to start here with our first design. Well, there's 6 new designs for the season. And get my screen going. There we go. And in 6 of our yarns. So we have Cirro, Meadow, Acadia, Luma, and Make, and our Amble yarns. And then we're going to revisit some tops that either we designed here at the Fibre Co or through other designers and indie designers that were published by others. And just if you're looking for more inspiration than the 6 that we've provided, we're going to go through a couple of those. And we'll have a chance to have you ask some questions. So please do put your questions in the Q&A, if you will, because the chat often moves a little too fast for us. And so we might miss it in the chat. But let's go ahead and get started. Well, our first up is in the Cirro yarn. And it's called the Peace Cardigan. And peace is quite a nice word, isn't it? It was a peaceful environment. We felt like the images were very peaceful looking. But we're going to take a look, Becky. Think back to when we were first coming up with the kinds of designs we wanted to have for the season. What were we thinking about with the Peace Cardigan? Do you remember what we were kind of going through at that moment?
Yeah, well, we had seen a beautiful design that Joe Alport had came up with. It was a V-neck sweater in our Cirro yarn called Cirro, and it was just stunning. And it had really beautiful, simple, like key features in it, and really sort of effortless, like that loose fit. And we were like, we really want to see something like that in this collection, but we don't have a cardigan design that would do that. So we reached out to Joe and said, we want something with these simple but beautiful features. What have you got? What can you design?
Yeah,
And
and that's
we
often
got
what we
these
do,
in.
don't we? We have an idea and then we think about designers. And Joe is someone that we work with, but usually through magazines. We provide a
Yeah.
lot of yarn support for designs that Joe creates, and she works with a lot of the UK-based magazines, knitting magazines.
That's right.
But when we saw this one that she did in Cirro, we were very impressed, and she was delighted to work with us directly. And we were excited. So, and this was the result. So tell
This
us
is the
about the
result.
design a little bit, Becky, and how it's
Yeah.
constructed.
So the design has these beautiful little side seam details. You'll see that in the next slide in a close up, but they're just really simple but so beautiful. And I was sort of working out how are we creating that, because your normal cardigan you'd knit on, cast on, and knit back and forward. But yeah, actually for this one, the hems are done in 3 separate pieces. So you do one front, the other front, and the back, get your little shape in for the side splits, and then they're joined together after that, with a really invisible sort of 3 needle join. And then you can knit like you would normally do in your cardigan, back and forward, until the underarms, and then just separate after that for the 2 pieces. So it's really cleverly how they're joined. They sort of overlap as well, and I think it's a really lovely feature. And also something else that's really nice for this one, the button band is worked at the same time. So you don't have to pick up afterwards. So it's all worked as you're going along.
Yeah, that's always a plus, isn't it?
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
not dreading that little narrow bit of knitting, or depending on how it's worked, picking up all those stitches.
The
So
little
that's a real plus. And I think also, Becky, you mentioned something about the buttons on this cardigan when we talked
I
about it once.
did. I was just mentioning to Daphne before our call that one of my jobs at the Fibre Co, once when I receive the samples from the designers, look over them. If we need buttons added on, then I will do that. I will match up the colours and what goes for us for as a brand. And I was everywhere. There's two designs in this season that have buttons. I was everywhere looking for buttons. I couldn't quite find the ones that I wanted. And then I remembered that when my great auntie passed, I inherited her button box. So I'm sure there's a lot of makers out there who have a button box. I have one, my mum has one, my mum has my grand's one. So it's a huge big tin. There's multiple tins actually. And I was raking through, and when I opened them up, lo and behold, there was at least 7 buttons for this design that were just perfect. And for the next design coming up, again, there was the perfect buttons. They look quite vintage by the wrapper that they were on, the old co-op card that they were still on. And yes, they were just perfect. So it's really, really nice that my great aunt's buttons were perfect for the design and that they're now in this lovely photo shoot on this sample. So she would have been delighted because she was an avid knitter and somebody that helped encourage my love of knitting. So nice story.
That's a lovely story, Becky. And I just wonder how many people on the webinar have a button box or a button bin or two, and
Yeah.
any button stories. Lots of yeses coming in. Oh, yes, I have my grandma's button box. Yeah, that's lovely.
That's so
I mean,
nice.
yeah, my mom's, my grandmom's, yeah, it is quite a common thing, isn't it? And sometimes I look mine is an old sewing box and it's at the bottom of the sewing box and it's
Mhm.
very disorganized. But how many times I've gone in there and just found the perfect thing for a project at hand.
Yeah.
Not always. It's really disappointing when you don't have enough. Like you find the perfect one and you don't have enough.
Well, that's the thing. I thought I would only maybe get 2 or 3, but there was
Yeah,
a few multiples there, so it was
yeah,
really
yeah.
nice. But I think buttons are like treasures, especially when they're vintage ones. And my daughter, who's
Yes.
4, thinks they're treasures and loves to look at them.
Oh, I'll bet. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's really
Oh,
nice. But I have a little quote to share from Joe Alport about
oh, good.
Zero, so that'd be nice to share
Let's
with
hear what she
everyone.
says.
Joe says, with such a beautiful yarn like Cirro, designs can be kept simple. So here is a cardigan to take you through the seasons. It can be worn over a dress or cami on a summer's evening or layer up to say toasty midwinter.
Lovely. Well, thank you, Joe. It's really nice. We do always ask the designers for at least a little quote or comment about what they've created and what inspired them once we've given them a brief. And
Yep.
it's really lovely to hear their responses. I mean, stories and knitting, and they just go hand in hand, don't they?
Yeah.
Here on this slide, you can see this overlapping side vent, and it's just I just love that right there. I love this picture. I love this
Oh,
close up.
so lovely.
And it came out so great in Cirro. Cirro is an interesting yarn. It's a brushed yarn, and when we set out to make a brush yarn, we didn't feel like the market needed another mohair and silk blend of brushed yarn out there, and there's so many beautiful lace weight versions of those. And plus we didn't want, you could do it with other blends and such, but we didn't also just want to do another lace weight yarn. So we worked with a couple of mills, and the mill we worked with on this one, based in Peru, they told us about the possibility of using a cotton core and having a slightly thicker yarn than a lace weight in a brushed yarn, and using Surrey fiber, which will brush like mohair, but not quite the same. Usually it's not as fluffy as a brushed mohair yarn is. And then added in merino as well. We added the merino because Surrey fiber is not, I mean, it has a little bit of crimp, but not much. And mohair has a little bit more crimp, nowhere near as much crimp as merino. And if crimp is an unknown thing to you, it's just that wool fibers are, if you look at them up closely, they're very wavy, and it's that waviness that gives it a bounce and gives the pleasure of knitting with something like wool. So we thought, all right, we'll try Surrey and merino for a little extra crimp in the yarn, and those two fibers are spun around in this cotton core. And it gives it a thicker, we call it a sport weight, although it's very versatile, and we knit it at traditional DK gauges as well as sport gauges. It's very versatile because the fluff will fill it in, just like the brush mohawks are as well. And you don't have to knit it with, say, a lace weight merino the way so many people do to get a structured garment. That cotton gives it a lot of structure, and it ends up being quite a large percentage of the yarn. It's 40% of the yarn, and cotton is a more economical fiber. So that means that this is probably, for luxury brushed yarns, it's probably one of the most economical ones in all natural fibers that is on the market today. So it has an extra plus. And here you can see the range of colors that are available. And this garment takes between 5 and 7 hanks. This shade here is called Angelic. And so that's our Cirro design for the season. I hope you like it, the Peace Cardigan. And we are going to now look at the Meadow design. And here we have the threadline top from a designer that we have worked with in the past, Imke von Nathusius. I was going to say it right, but and I think when we started here, Becky, we were talking about, we wanted it to be kind of like the summer of tops or the season of tops, and
Yeah.
Meadow is a perfect yarn. Now, Meadow is a lace weight yarn. We always say it's a heavy lace weight yarn, but it is one of these yarns that, because it has some linen in it, it's good for the season, and silk as well as merino and baby llama. It's kind of a typical Fibre Co blend. And it's versatile in terms of the different gauges you can knit it at. And it's not just to be used for very lightweight, lacy, intricate shawls, but here we are seeing, we have quite a few garments in it. So I think this one maybe knits up at about 28 stitches on the various gauges, but I just love this little V shape that comes from the front and the side panels. And tell us how that all works, Becky. What creates that look
Yes,
of,
it's so beautiful. And MK always comes up with quite unique and interesting constructions or movements within her pattern. And with this one, she's done it again. It's decreases and increases that are worked at the same time to create the sort of fluid shape within the patterns. But the pattern, the sort of sections that you can see are different patterns. The middle one is a garter stitch, and then the other ones at the sides are a 3x1 broken rib, but you're working with your two color stripe, so it's just a two color stripe throughout, but then separate panels of different patterns, and it's just really clever. It sounds complicated, and but it's really cleverly done. You're just working two different patterns with your stripes, but yeah, we are you are doing decreases at the same time, so there's things going on. But yeah, I think MK's mind when it comes to designing the movement and constructions is just amazing what she can come up with. And I love this. I love the different look. It almost looks like, there's a seam, or there's different
yeah.
there's a panel inserted, and it's so beautiful. I can give you some more construction details on it. I have noted down that it's worked bottom up, and it's seamlessly in the round when you're doing all your patterns that I spoke about before. And yeah, there's a lovely little I-cord trim around the neck and around the armholes. And what else have we got? I've noted that, yeah, you'll get a close-up view of the lovely stitch on the next slide. But I've got a nice quote from MK that I'll just share with you when you're looking at the lovely stitch pattern. MK's wrote, Meadow creates an airy fabric which is pleasant to wear during hot summer days, but also warm as a layering piece, slip over during colder seasons. So yeah, just what Daphne said. It's pretty versatile, and it's really nice to see this worked on its own, not held double or not worked with something else, and you can use Meadow for a garment.
Yeah, you definitely can. And it has a really beautiful rustic appearance to it with the linen. So you have this baby llama blended with merino, and then you add the silk. and then the linen. A lot of the shades, I want to say about half of them are hand dyed. So you get some interesting nuance in the colors if you do something in an all over the same color. And then in this case with the stripes, you know, that is what creates the interest with color, but you can see the rustic appeal to it. And we call it rustic luxury because that is indeed what it is. And you can make this top with just 2 hanks for the smallest of sizes on up to 5 hanks. So it's a beautiful palette as well. There are a total of 27 shades. And you can see through the shades that we have here, a lot of them, you know, tend to be the brighter, lighter pastel, but then we have a few deep shades as well. And but because this yarn is used so much for this season where we just like to have color reflect the beauty of the sun and the warmth, it's a palette that sits for that season. And so this is the threadline top. And next up, we're going to show you a design that we have for Acadia. Let's take a look at that now. And here we'll see the One Yoke Tee in a lace. Now, what is this one? What does this one mean? Well, if you've been around the Fibre Co for a while, you might have heard of our One series, and it all started with a One sweater. And that was kind of a sweater that was meant to be like a blueprint from which all sweaters could be made, you know, quite simple shape with a crew neck and raglan sleeves. One that was like almost like if you're a sewer, it would be like your basic sloper pattern that you could go from there and do other things. And so that was the One sweater, and then it evolved and we had a One sweater DK for a different weight, and then we did a textured version, and then we did a V-neck, and then last autumn, we did one cardigan, and then we did one sock. So we jumped away from sweaters and cardigans, and we went to socks, and we taught sock knitting with the One series. That's been a real hit for us. And then last autumn, we had the One Yoke. And that One Yoke was done in 3 different yoke options, all in one pattern. So you could do a colorwork yoke, you could do a lace yoke, or you could do a textured yoke. And it was really strong, and it still is. It's still, you know, a favorited design. So we had the idea for doing that same thing in spring. So Becky, when we were talking about that, you proposed the 2 versions that we have in this collection. Tell me a little bit about why this one and lace and the yarn choice, because you are the designer here. So
yes, this is one of mine. So yeah, following on from that change in construction that you mentioned, going from the raglan and the other One sweaters, and we did the One Yoke last season, we wanted a summer version of One Yoke, so One Yoke Tee. And we'd done lace and texture, but it was how can we do that for this season? And in the last ones, things were sort of, you know, mountainous shape. That was my inspiration. So I still wanted to bring that through for the lace in this one. But I was actually wanted to use really the beautiful lace stitch that we've got. This was very similarly used in our Patera sweater from our Atmosphere collection, and it was made in Cirro. And it was like, what would that look like in a different yarn? And if we modified it slightly, because it's quite in the Cirro one, you know, it's beautiful, but it's almost sort of like dreamy and hazy, and you don't it looks completely different. And then the stitch in Acadia just really lifts up and pops up. So I'll put more purl stitches in between and made it shorter, so that, you know, it was appropriate for like the tee length. Um, Modified it a little bit, and then worked on the rest of the one block that we work on, making it this really nice little cropped shape with the cropped sleeve. So yeah, I love how beautiful Acadia's showed that stitch. It's fantastic.
yeah, it's come out so nice, and it's worn very well by our model here. This is Karen model who's modeled for us before. You can imagine that living in Cumbria and finding fashion models is not exactly the easiest of jobs, but Karen is actually the mother of two of our employees, and we just love that she's willing to come and step in front of the camera and, you know, be so natural. And Karen is an avid knitter herself, so she does, and she does amazing knitting, and so she really gets what we put on her, and she was so easy to direct. She's always so easy to direct because she knows what we want to show. And anyway, that's just a little aside, but anything else you want to say about this design in terms of you know, the shape, in terms of the length or anything like that, Becky?
Yeah, we wanted that little boxy look, didn't we? And then there's always a fine line by getting the crop on right on a crop length. It's like if it just a little bit longer, then it doesn't look cropped, and you don't get that shape that you wanted. But I think we nailed it with this one. Yeah, and the little sleeves as well. We didn't want like really cap sleeves. Wanted that, proper crop shape with the sleeves and the body length. And yeah, Karen it's the perfect fit on her. It's really
It really
lovely.
does. I
Yeah.
wonder, this is a question, how many who are on this call would feel comfortable modeling their knitwear in front of the camera? Have you ever tried it, or do you model your own goods? Maybe even just post them as a project modeled
Good
on
question.
Ravelry. Yeah. Don't be shy. Tell us.
Yeah. There's
Oh yeah, Candace is saying that she does. Yep. Yes, we know that, Candace. Yes. Lovely. It depends, Leslie says. Sure, but would prefer my daughter. I know, I'm the same way. I've sent you a couple, but I'm hardly a pro. Yes, yes, Mitzi, you certainly have sent me some. You're so great about staying in touch and letting us know what you've knit. And that is really lovely to see your photos. Um, yeah, thanks. I could never do it. I stand in front of the camera and I'm just too self-conscious. And but some people can do it so easily. Linda says that her local knit shop had a fashion show where we wore our own knitted items. It was so much fun. Yeah. You know, the Fibre Co, where we started in Portland, Maine, there was a yarn shop there. And at the time, the owner started a fashion show, and it was an annual event. And it was called Show Us Your Wares. And um, I think it started with both sewing and knitting. I think from the get-go, it was both. And it just became this thing that, the local community in Portland, Maine really enjoyed going to. It was well done, and it was fun. And yeah, not a fan of cameras, Lynn says, and Sarah agrees. Yeah. Oh, well, just a little aside. I think it's interesting because, as a behind the scenes thing, just thinking about what goes into it all, I find it interesting how everybody's a little bit different. So, well, now, what about this yarn, Acadia? Acadia is a DK weight yarn. We have, of all the weights, the most that we have are DK weights. We recently wrote a newsletter about DK weights and what it is, what makes it a DK weight, and where that even term came from, DK. And it does have an interesting history, but it's just a little bit lighter than worsted weight if you're more say most of the American knitters are more familiar with probably worsted weight. But I think now, because everybody is so connected and all that, we know DK and worsted equally well. But DK is just a little bit lighter than worsted weight. It makes for a perfect sweater weight. And it for this one yoke tee in the lace weight version, it uses 4 to 10 hanks. Now these are 50-gram hanks. Acadia, all the shades are hand dyed except for some of the neutrals where they're blended with natural colors of alpaca. So you can see some neutrals in that blend, a beige and a couple of different grays. And there, instead of dyeing those, we blend natural shades of alpaca with the merino and silk that's in the blend. And the reason Acadia has a rustic look is the use of silk noil. And silk noil is kind of a side product from fine silk thread spinning. And it's repurposed, and it's because silk is a little bit gummy, it causes the fibers to make little balls, and it creates an interesting texture in yarns. And so that's what we liked about it. And when I used to do all the hand dyeing myself, one of the most interesting things about Acadia is how the silk at different temperatures of water baths will attach to different elements of the dye. So if the dye formula has a blue and a red and a yellow to create this color here in various different percentages, the silk will grab more of the blue and show up as little highlight bumps, and it's just really beautiful. So it's fun to see it develop in the dye pot too. But yeah, so that's Acadia. It's this lovely blend, and it's been in the line for ages. It was based on the first yarn we ever made, which was called Terra, same blend. And to create this is 4 to 10 hanks, and this shade here is called Sea Lavender. So next up, how are we doing for time? We're doing all right.
Okay.
The next up is the next version of the One Yoke Tee, the textured version. So tell us
Yeah.
about this one, Becky.
Yes. So I can see a question in our chat as well from Judith Grant that says, could you comment on the neckline? So I think that's in relation to the One Yoke Tees. If it is, the neckline is cast on with a long tail tubular cast on, and then one by one rib, literally for one row, and then it goes straight into the pattern. So straight into the lace pattern for the lace version. And the texture version, I think I might have done more than one row. There might have been one or two because that then goes into a rib anyway. So yes, that's why you just have this, beautiful, smooth transition. There's no real ribbing or real neck trim. It almost looks like it does almost just start from the cast on, just one very simple row. So yeah, hopefully that answered your question. And yes, the textured version, again, I looked into previous designs that we had and, what was really inspiring for other tops or other yoke tops that we'd done. And one that really jumped out for me was Deep Moss Pot from our Borrowdale collection. And it had really beautiful ribbon with this little simple crossover detail. So I wanted to use that, and I added in a couple different repeats with some other sort of ribbon variations. And this one also has a really cute matching ribbed hem, which is really, really sweet. And the little twisty details are down the bottom as well. And all the ribs in this one are just a twisted rib stitch, which works really nicely in the Luma yarn, I think, to do that on the ribbon. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I agree, Becky. I think it looks perfect in Luma. And Luma uh, is another yarn that has both silk and linen in it. But it also has merino and cotton. So it comes out looking a little bit different than, say, the linen and silk that was in Meadow.
Yeah.
Um, and this is 50% organic cotton. So it does tend to be what we call kind of our summer yarn, more so than some of the others. As a DK weight, as we've said, it takes between 4 and 9 hanks. These are 50-gram hanks. This shade that's shown here is called Ancient Stone. And it is quite, with that 50% cotton, it ends up being one of our more affordable yarns. So it's a great, and because this one takes few hanks, it's a really nice affordable project for the season. And Luma is, again, the color palette in Luma is, well, you can see from just the name of the yarn itself, right? It's about the threads of sunlight is our tagline here. And we were definitely inspired by the light that we get at this time of year, and the excitement from wearing these lighter, brighter colors, some pastels, some deep, but most of them tend to be more on the lighter and brighter side.
Yeah. We have
All
a
right.
question in the chat from Lynn who's just asking, can you knit the One Yoke Tee longer? And the answer is yes, you can. They're both knit, well, they're from the top down. So you can go longer with your sleeves before you add on the ribbon. And same with the body length. You can just knit to whatever your preferred length is. You just need more yarn than what's stated in the pattern. But yes, you can customize it to whatever you prefer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I would knit it longer too, because I tend not to wear that many bottoms that high on my waist.
Yeah.
And I'm not in at this age, I'm not into showing my midriff, but um it's easily done. Just lengthen it, just buy an extra hank of yarn for your size and take it down. And because it's top down, that's the beauty of it. And you
Yeah.
can just take it to the level that you want to go at.
And try on as you're going along and just keep
Try
going.
it on. But if you're going to wear it with skirts and, high-waisted pants and things, I think it's a really cute look. And
Yeah.
when crop things started coming back in, I was like, oh no, do we really need cropped again, to be in fashion? And I think it was because at the time, we were wearing pants, or maybe I still hadn't updated my wardrobe to trousers that were a little bit lower on the hips. And but I think if you wear it with high-waisted trousers or skirts, it's a really cute look. And so, yeah, that's great. Great question. Let's see, any others we haven't answered? No, we're good. Okay. All right. So next up is our and make designs, and we have two. The Radiant Panels Pullover. Becky, you're the
Yeah.
designer. What were we thinking?
Yeah, so yes, and make designs. We love to have really good fun with our make designs. We've got such a full, vibrant color palette, which it just makes coming up with color work designs really easy and really fun and really creative. And this season, I really wanted to have a go at some intarsia designs. So with this one, it's a simple intarsia that's just worked on the body. The sleeves aren't intarsia, they are just color block stripes. So they can be worked in the round because you just, round, round, round on the blue, change to the orange, change to the white. But the body is knit, the front and back are knit separate so that you can keep going back and forward with your intarsia balls, and then sewn side seams. But you can have so much fun with the different squares, different. One of the little cuffs you'll see is orange and the other one is white, and then the neckline is the orange. So you could play about with all lots of fun different contrast colors. So I'm excited to see everybody's versions of the radiant panels and what colors they choose.
Yeah, the colors in and make, there's 20. And make is a range of yarns that the Fibre Co created, that I created, with 20 colors, and 20 colors that weren't typical Fibre Co colors. So we're mostly known for more subdued colors and yeah, just bright oranges and things were not in our wheelhouse for many years. And in fact, when I developed this color palette, I needed help, and I helped. I enlisted the assistance of our then stylist, someone who used to come and help us with photo shoots and find the garments to wear with the knitwear and such, and her young 20-something daughter, because I realized it just wasn't in my head to think about purples and oranges and yellows and things like that. And we wanted the and make range to be something that was right up to date and on trend, and something that would appeal to a broader age range, maybe is the way to say it, and appeal to newer knitters, because from the beginning we designed each blend to be as economical as possible so that it could be kind of our more affordable range. So we have three weights. One is this DK weight, and then we have another that's 100% Highland wool in a bulky, super bulky weight, and we have another one still that is a 50-50 blend of alpaca and Highland wool again. But this has the linen, alpaca, and Highland wool. And we did this in the lighter weight and added the linen. So it could be a yarn that would maybe be slightly more affordable than our Meadow yarn, but still have a similar look. You can see the way the linen kind of sits on top of the fabric and creates that rustic look. But yet this one would be in a slightly more affordable, and be in DK weight would appeal to someone who doesn't feel as skilled to use the finest of weights of yarn. And so this garment takes between 9 and 17 balls. These are 50-gram balls again, and these are the 4 shades that it uses. And that's our first design in and make. Let's look at the next one, Becky.
And our next one is the Colorpath Cardy. So we've got Intarsia here again, which is worked on the back and comes round to one of the body fronts, and it's on one sleeve. And I think they look like little Lego bricks all stacked on top of each other. So yeah, this was just another one to have fun with. I was sort of planning, I had a big paper pattern on the floor and was planning how long I wanted each color block to go, if I wanted the shorter one on top and the long on top. So yeah, it was really good fun doing that. And then the decision just to have it on one sleeve so that it sits, on the same side that it comes around on the body. So yeah, I think that is, someone's just said it's so balanced. So it does. I think it balances, it's turned out it's so well balanced with the color. And then again, another one to have fun with. We went for the pink on the cuffs and on the button band, which is my favorite color. But another one to have fun with. You could have different cuffs and the different button band. You could totally customize it, and all your little Lego bricks, as I'm calling them, different colors there as well. Construction on this one, it's just worked flat in one piece for the cardigan, the body, sorry. And the sleeves are also worked flat because it is the intarsia, so it wasn't going to work having them top down or in the round. So you can just go back and forward with your intarsia yarn balls. So there's a seam that you need to sew on the sleeves and then join it into armholes. And then the button band is picked up last. And that's another one that showcases my button box treasures.
Yeah, well done, Becky. Thank you for rating your crayons button box for this. We appreciate that. That's lovely. And yeah, and so the yarn, well, we've already talked about the yarn, but just to give you an idea of the amount of yarn that goes into this one, it's 10 to 19 balls because, you do have all the different colors. And the color names, we had a lot of fun naming the color names because they're kind of like nods to popular culture. So things like Careless Whisper and Lil Pink and Borealis Bash, Hyper Blue and Mellow Yellow are the shade names that you see across this garment. But again, one that you could do anything. I'd really like to see this one in a dark color, one of the darker colors of the main color, and some of the brighter colors, on top of that. I think that would really be fun to see what someone does.
Yeah, that would be really nice.
Yeah. So we'll keep our eye open for the projects that get going on this. So, all right. Next up is the final design in our yarn Amble. And this is the Gentle Spirit Tee. Again, every time I think of Karen, we saw her in the Peace Cardigan, and now we see her in the Gentle Spirit Tee. So the gentle spirit that is Karen modeling this tee was also the one who modeled the Peace Cardigan, and she models it well. And in fact, this one was photographed by her daughter who works for us. Natasha is our graphic designer. And the design didn't make it in time, didn't it, Becky? It didn't make it in time for the photo shoot.
Yes.
And we had to do like an extra photo shoot. And
Yeah.
so it meant that we didn't have our regular photographer, but Natasha's pretty good at photography as well. So she did this kind of extra shoot, and we think it's a lovely picture. I hope you do too. But Hannah Massajuska is the designer, and we've worked with Hannah before. And our thinking with Hannah was that when we wanted a top in Amble, we remembered all of the cardigans and pullovers and things that Hannah has done, not only for us, but her own repertoire of patterns. And we knew what we wanted, and all the stars aligned, and she was available to do this design for us. And we said, we'd love to see a beautiful lace panel on a short sleeve top. So give us what you got. And this is what she came
Yeah.
up with. I think it's lovely.
Yes, it's absolutely gorgeous. And yeah, that was what we wanted, something that just had really interesting sleeves. And do we want them where they're additional? We've got to knit them. Can they be integrated? So we sort of came to Hannah with this brief, and this is what we've got. And where the lace pattern just goes right over, flows just right over the drop shoulders, which is just beautifully done. I really, really love how it's turned out on that. A little bit of construction notes for you I've got. It's worked seamlessly from the top down, and there's some German short rows involved there to shape the shoulders. And then, yeah, it's finished off with a really pretty little eyelet detail and garter hem, which is just really lovely. And it finishes off the balance of the lace on the top, doesn't it?
Yeah, you
Um,
can see it up close here in this close-up shot. Just
yeah.
I mean, I'd love to see this lace pattern in so many different things, but it's just gorgeous in this top. When we put out a new collection, we monitor to see different places, either responses to our newsletters or online on social media. And the Gentle Spirit Tee has gotten the most likes and the most hearts. And I can kind of see, like, I can definitely see why I like them all. It's really hard to say. Looks, Nick S has said to us that the Gentle Spirit Tee has just moved to the top of their wish list
Yeah.
to make. So that's fantastic. And it is an interesting lace panel. Mitzi says, nice. It is. And I think it would be fun to do as well. Okay, well, this is it. This is the lineup for what we proposed, but um, we have some favorites out there, and we have some designs that we've done in the past, and just because you didn't get to make it in the past doesn't mean that you can't make it now. So if none of these things caught your fancy or you remember some of these that we're just about to show you, like, oh yeah, I remember that, but I never made it. And well, we can't make all the things, but we thought we'd just throw out a few more bits of inspiration, since this is the kind of, we were inspired by like either sleeveless tops or short sleeve tops or things that you could wear in the warmer climate. So we thought we'd start here with another Cirro design that we brought out last year in the spring summer season, called the Soft Shores top. Uses 2 to 5 hanks of Cirro, and this shade here is called Ghost Dunes. And then the next one that we have to remind you about was the Moonbeam top. And this is in Meadow. So you can see how different Meadow looks in a very light pastel color like this. Yeah, Mitzi says, nice selection. I can't knit fast enough. Oh, that's the thing, isn't it? No, we can't. We'd love to knit a lot faster to be able to knit all the things. And this is a design from a couple of spring seasons ago that we published. Takes only 2 to 3 hanks of Meadow. Meadow goes so far at about, I think it's close to 500 yards on the 100-gram hank, something like that. And this is in the shade Cherry Blossom by one of our favorite designers, Claire Mountain Manipon. Claire used to work for us, and so she came back and did this design for us, which we just really love. Very easy to wear, very clear, with all these simple little details on the way the shoulder works, and this little triangle in the front and the side splits. This was a real favorite when it came into the office. And
I love the neckline. It's always a favorite for me. I
I
always
know, me
have,
too. And
and
one of our
I love
favorite
it.
indie designers, from Jennifer Shields Tolan. I don't know how many of you know Jen's work. She publishes under the name JST Knitwear Designs, and she's a real fan of our yarns, and we're a real fan of all of her designs. And she did this design, the Riptide Slipover, in Make DK. And she's done some other designs in Make DK too, and she's talked about how much she loves that yarn. We think it's perfect for this season. So does she. And she did this design last year that we're really excited about when it came out. She also did a halter design using this same kind of little squiggly textured stitch that goes up the front. You can do this with just 4 to 9 balls of Make DK. Again, a very affordable project for the season. And then the next one is one that we brought out not that long ago. It's a vest in our and make Aran yarn. One that, maybe is a bit more transitional because this is a 50-50 wool alpaca yarn using 3 to 7 balls, but these are 100-gram balls, and we have it in 3 different versions. There's a stripe and a solid and a color block version. And then we have next up in our Aran More light yarn, a vest that's called a cherry bark. And so we just thought we would remind you of some of our favorite sleeveless, lightweight tops and vests that are out there. And there's so many more. There are so many more. We kind of would like to do them all and do more. But we try to get our arms around what we do. And so this season we were able to do these 6 designs. We hope you like them. And I've just noticed our time. We're okay. We have 10 minutes and we are here to answer questions, hear your comments about any of the designs at all. If you'd like, when you close out the webinar, I think we ask a few questions, a little survey. You're not obligated to reply, but if you do, it really helps us because we love your feedback. We love your input. And some of you are maybe shy to put your comments in the webinar chat for everyone to see, but that's how we could get, for those of you who haven't responded and want to tell us something, that's a really good place to do it. And, but if there's any questions, I think there's one question. Iris is looking for an online source of attractive buttons. Any suggestions other than Amazon? Oof, Iris.
Well, I guess we're UK based, so I'm not sort of sure about US online source, but yeah, I was just about to say Etsy. I can see that
Yeah.
Rick said Etsy. It's really nice for, maybe individual ones or homemade or crafted or vintage. Vintage. I don't know if you have vintage in the US, but we have that here in the UK. And it's like an app for, like secondhand clothing. And I have recently found some nice buttons on there and eBay, things like that for, repurposing. And like I said, as I go back to the button box quite a lot, and I like to find vintage ones where I can.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's really hard for me to find things and decide on things that I see online, and I like to see them in person. And where I live, there's very little you can see in person. Just it's not the shopping mecca of the world. But one thing I have been known to do this is because there are a lot of charity or secondhand shops in the UK, and most towns, even small towns, will have several. And so sometimes I go in and I if I'm looking for something, I might look at some tops and things that have an interesting button. And I have been known to buy something that was at a good price, and that I felt like either I could do something with the fabric left over of whatever I clipped those buttons on, or that it wouldn't be too wasteful for me to, put it back in, a pile of things that I do something with someday, somehow, some way.
Definitely do that. I've got a huge box of things.
Oh gosh, all the things that I have like that, stacks and stacks of things that are, fabric that I bought by the yard, but also things that are fabric like because of, garments that I just can't wear anymore for whatever reason, but I might be able to use that fabric one day in something.
I have a vintage Missoni sweater that I found in a vintage shop for £.
What?
And I've got it
Oh my
sitting in a
gosh.
box, but it doesn't fit
Wow.
me. It's like a kind of man's 80s sporty one, but I thought I could, cut this and join it, and I recently found it and I need to do something with that again.
Are you inspired?
Yes, yeah, I need to do something with that again. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's the time, as everybody else says, we need more time. Our knitting lists are long and our making lists are long,
Mhm.
and if only there was more hours in the day.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Let's see if there's any more questions. I don't think there's oh, I have 3 hanks of your beautiful Cumbria yarn, Jane says. Left over from a sweater I made. Any idea how I could use it? Oh, three hanks of our Cumbria yarn. Yeah, we have a lovely cowl designed by Emma Wright. And it's in, oh, you probably, these are, if they're all the same color, it may not be as effective as the one we have. Are they all the same color, Jane? If so, I would look to make a shawl. I mean, three hanks would be a perfect shawl, all the same color, right? Yeah. So I would look for some kind of neckwear for that, if, for the winter, assuming you have a winter season that you need to bundle up with, but it would be perfect for that. I think it's just probably, depending on your size, just a little too small for a vest, although we do have a vest called, it's in our Felgarth collection, Moyna, Moyna. Maybe the smallest size only uses three hanks. Check that out in case you are a small size. You might be able to make that. What else comes to mind? You can always go to our website and you can sort on our patterns by yarn and type. So I would, sort on accessories and just to see what comes up there. But also I would just look, worsted weight yarns on Ravelry. Ravelry is great for filters, worsted weight yarns, and things that would be a smaller project. So scarf, shawl, and vest basically is where you're going to be at to get something done. Or three hats. Why not three hats? 100 grams of Cumbria. Cumbria is a great hat weight yarn. It really is. And you could, maybe some gifts, some holiday or birthday gifts for friends. And then you could all make one for you and two of your best friends, and then go out and have a celebration wearing your hats, or do a photo shoot, stand in front of the camera with the three of you and send us the picture. Yeah. Well, she's already made gloves with a fourth ball. Oh, fantastic. Wow. Okay, so you had 4 left over. Great. Good. Well, I'm glad you like the gloves. I'll bet they are lovely. Cumbria is one of my favorite yarns for just warmth and feeling, everything that's good about, handmade knitwear. It's just one of those yarns that envelope you like that. And I also feel that way about our Lore yarn and our Anne Make Erin yarn are those for me. But anyway, I could talk yarn forever. And we've kind of come up to the end of our hour. Have we answered all the questions? I see a lot of lovely comments. And Amy Sment, who's one of our terrific sales reps. She goes around to all the local yarn shops and presents the Fibre Co yarn. So that's how you can find them. And that's why you find them, is because people like Amy go around and show our yarns to yarn shops. And she says that lulubuttons.com is a great US shop in New York City. So that's great. Someone has suggested the Boneyard Shawl by Stephen West. That would be stunning. I think that's from Kitrin in probably in response to what could be done with 3 skeins of Cumbria. Mitzi again says, it took me almost 20 years to use all the fabric I bought when I worked for the fabric shop. Oh, I can imagine 20 years. Oh, good grief. Oh, Joyce, sorry to be late and had a massive argument with the Zoom app. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, listen, don't worry. This is good. This has been recorded, and you'll get a link to the recording, Joyce, so you can watch again. Stephanie has asked how she can get the newsletter. If you go to our website and scroll to the bottom, there's a place where you can sign up to it. And so that's great. So yeah, everybody's having some lovely comments. Some of them are to everybody. Some of them are just to Becky and I. But regardless, they're lovely comments. Thanking us for the presentation. You're really welcome. Thank you guys for coming. We really appreciate you taking your time. It's a Saturday, we know that you have lots of things to do or could be doing with your time, but we're glad that you came here, and we love getting your feedback. So if you're inclined to answer the survey, that'd be fantastic. We'd love to hear what you think of things. And Jacqueline says, this has been wonderful. Thank you. So Great. Well, listen, happy spring solstice to everybody. It's coming up next week, isn't it? And so we're trying to have it on that day, but it conflicted with a few other things. So a week before to get you ready. So next week, you can maybe sit down on the summer solstice and decide what you want to make for yourself this season. So thank you to everyone. Thank you, Becky, for being with me here
Thank
as
you so
always.
much for having me. It's been
Yeah.
great. I just see somebody said this is a delightful part of their birthday. So happy birthday.
Oh, fantastic. Wow.
Thank you for joining
That's
us
an
next
honor.
birthday. That's so lovely.
That's a real honor for us to share some of your birthday. Happy birthday. Terrific. And yeah, so thank you very much, everyone, and have a lovely weekend. See you soon.